Today we're making flourless monster cookies. It's one of the most popular recipes on my website. I love it because it doesn't have any flour, it doesn't have any butter, and it just has a few simple ingredients that you probably have in your pantry right now. I love this recipe because it has pretty much everything that a good cookie recipe has. It's got peanut butter, it's got chocolate chips, it's got M&Ms, it's got oats. We're using gluten-free oats to keep this completely gluten-free. All of those things together, that's what makes a monster cookie a monster cookie. It's just, I think they call it monster cookie because they're monstrous. I've given this a lot of thought. Either that or the Cookie Monster really likes them, maybe both, but they're just kind of like everything in one bowl monster cookie. What's not to like about chocolate, peanut butter, oats, M&Ms, all the good stuff. So to start, you're gonna do all of the wet ingredients. You need 2 eggs. Try to get large eggs. They're just kind of the right size for baking. Most baking recipes, any dessert will typically call for a large egg. So you need 2 of those. And then you're gonna use 1 entire cup of peanut butter. Make sure you get a creamy peanut butter. You don't want a peanut butter that is drippy, and by that I mean like one that you have to mix up and is kind of oily. You want one that's really thick because that's what is gonna give these cookies a lot of structure because we don't have any butter or flour in this recipe. Next, you're gonna do 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. Make sure you pack the sugar really tight when you're measuring it out. And then we're gonna do 1/4 a cup of granulated sugar. And then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of vanilla. If you're like me, this is probably the only place that you can kind of wing the measurements. Vanilla, you can kind of just you can kind of eyeball it, so it's okay if it's not exactly 2 teaspoons. Mix this really well. You wanna mix it until all of the eggs are kind of incorporated. There aren't gonna be any yellowy streaks in it. And the best thing about this cookie recipe too is that there's no beaters, there's no blender or extra things to clean like your KitchenAid mixer or whatever you're using. Okay, just a spatula is all you need. Then we're gonna go in with 3/4 of a cup of rolled oats. I'm using gluten-free rolled oats to keep this recipe totally gluten-free. And then in here we have 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, which is what helps these cookies rise, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Mix it up really well. This is kind of like a sticky batter, cookie dough, I guess. Dough, not batter. And because there isn't any flour in it, which is totally fine. So just make sure all the oats are totally incorporated. That's it. And then the best part, chocolate, double chocolate. This is 1/2 cup of mini chocolate chips. I think if you use the large chocolate chips, because the structure is a little bit different than a regular cookie, the large chocolate chips can kind of overpower this batter. And then you're gonna go in with 1/2 cup of mini M&Ms too. And you just fold them in. Reminds me of Schitt's Creek. When she's trying to teach Moira how to fold it. This is how you fold it, Moira. All right. Literally, that's all the ingredients. You probably have them in your pantry. I already said that, but seriously, so easy. Okay. Get it all off. You don't want to leave any dough behind. This is the fun part. Grab yourself some parchment paper. Okay, so actually here's somewhere where you can kind of have a little bit of leeway in the recipe. You can cover this up and chill it in the fridge for a couple hours at this point, or you can scoop them into cookie dough balls and then put them in the fridge. I am going to scoop them first because I just think it's a little bit easier to scoop the dough that's like not super hard. 1/2 cup of cookie dough is going down. I think that's the most gratifying thing ever. when you have a perfect scoop of cookie dough and it just, I love it. The peanut butter, the chocolate. I originally started baking a lot of gluten-free things when my mom went gluten-free like 4 years ago. And I just started experimenting with gluten-free recipes, and Monster cookies are some of my favorite cookies out there. I've heard it's a Midwest thing, and we're here in Ohio, so I don't know if it is or not, but these were one of our favorites, and I was like, how can we make these gluten-free? Okay, like let's just not use any flour, cool. It's kind of like the flourless peanut butter cookies, but a Monster cookie take with lots of extra chocolate. The great thing about this recipe too is it's kind of like choose your own adventure. You can chill them now, like I said, you can chill it after you scoop it out. And then this is the stage in the recipe that you can freeze it if you want. So I love to freeze cookie dough. It lasts probably like 3-4 months in the freezer. I always start baking Christmas cookies like in September, because then you just have them frozen. If you've got a deep freezer, then it makes life so easy. And so at this point you can throw them in the freezer, let them set for a little bit, and then once they're kind of more solid, you can put them in a freezer bag or an airtight container. And you can honestly just like have one single Monster cookie whenever you want it, because you can just take one cookie dough out, put it on the baking sheet, you can bake it straight from frozen. It'll probably just take a few extra minutes to bake, which is totally fine. So, last one. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, let me get some saran wrap. You have to chill this dough because there isn't any butter or flour. You really do need to chill it. Just because it helps keep the structure. There's 2 reasons why you chill cookie dough. The first is the flavors just have time to get extra happy and like settle in together. And then the second is to make sure that they hold their structure when they bake so they don't like spread out all over the place. So you can refrigerate at this point, or you can throw them in the freezer and save them for another day. I've always wanted to do this part of a cooking show where your cookies are just miraculously ready for you in the fridge. Look at these, they're perfect. And they're chilled and they're in nice little balls and ready to bake. Well, I forgot to preheat the oven, so make sure you do that about 15 minutes before you're ready to actually bake the cookies from the fridge. So this dough has been chilling for 3 hours. You can also chill them overnight or like I said, in the freezer. So you can make these up to a couple days in advance. They're a little bit too close together on the parchment paper that we chilled them on, so I'm just gonna do a few on a new piece of parchment paper. I just have a large baking sheet and a piece of parchment paper, a Silpet mat, like a rubber mat will do as well. We're doing 9. That way they have room. All right, these are going into the oven at 350 degrees for about 8 minutes. So when you have your first batch in the oven, make sure that you put the extra dough back in the fridge. We want to keep this dough as cold as possible the entire baking process so that nothing spreads out like a pancake in the oven. Look at these. Just set. Now I'm gonna let you in on a really secret cookie tip. If you really wanna look like your cookies are professional, have a bowl of extra toppings. I got M&Ms and chocolate chips here. And then just gently press them into the cookies while they're still warm. Here's the deal. You don't want it to look overly like done, like it's like you want it to look like they just happen to bake that way. But we're just gonna add a little M&Ms. They're gonna be pretty soft for a little bit until they're cool. They'll be crispy on the outside and just chewy on the inside. The best kinds of cookies. Depending on how big your cookies are, they'll probably take anywhere between 8 and 10 minutes to cook. It really just depends on, your cookie dough, how big they are, and your oven. So keep an eye on them once it starts hitting about 8 minutes, and you'll pull them out, let them cool for a few minutes on the cookie sheet, and then we're gonna grab one of these cooling racks and transfer them over to cool completely, or almost completely, because who doesn't love just a little bit of a goo inside of a cookie? And then when you're doing your next batch, this is another little cookie secret. You don't wanna put cookie dough on a warm cookie sheet because that's when the baking process starts. And cookies take such little time to bake that any extra bake time could bake your cookies. Make sure you wait till it's completely cool to add more cookie dough to your baking sheet. Extra chocolate on your hands, highly recommended. Would you ever believe that there's no flour or butter in these cookies? Yet, they're perfectly set and gooey on the inside. They're still a little warm, but I'm gonna have one anyway because that's like the best kinds of cookies. You guys ready for all this chocolate? Warm, sweet, chocolatey, chewy, just the right amount of peanut butter on the roof of your mouth, you know? And chocolate on your fingers. All your gluten-free friends, all your dairy-free friends are gonna love this cookie. And really, just your mom's gonna love it, I know it. Really everyone, your coworkers. We have a lot of cookies in the fridge. We're gonna need to make some more friends to share our cookies with. I can't stop eating this, wow. Wow. Make sure you subscribe, and don't forget you can find the link to this full recipe in the description. I'm gonna keep baking these. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you love this recipe. I could eat all of these.